News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and now 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
Jail death ruled a suicide. Good morning, everyone. It's Montana Morning. It's Wednesday, November 19th, 2014. Right now, we have 13 degrees under a partly cloudy sky. There's some fog in the area as well. Our news is sponsored by Dr. Troy Doxey. He's got the friendly team at Chiropractic Works dedicated to chiropractic solutions. An investigation by Missoula police has determined that the recent death of a Missoula County jail inmate was a suicide. Police say several witnesses reported that 51-year-old Jeffrey Kolstad fell from a second floor railing at a jail pod November 3rd and struck his head on the concrete floor. He died at the hospital later that night. A coroner's inquest will be held because Kolstad died while in law enforcement custody. Kolstad had been arrested on suspicion of aggravated domestic assault and also for violating his parole. Lake County authorities are investigating what appears to be a suspicious shooting death that occurred early Tuesday morning in Charlotte. Undersheriff Dan Yonkin says the call was originally reported as a possible suicide.
When officers arrived on scene, they started to compare what they were seeing with what they were being told. It wasn't quite matching, so we've been investigating the case throughout the day as a suspicious shooting death. We've had one male that we've questioned, and we're still waiting for the crime lab to get us some preliminary autopsy results back.
Yonkin says the victim was a 29-year-old Charlotte resident. No names have yet been released. In a story we brought you last week, we do have some updated details. A man suspected of assaulting a former Wall Street Journal and Missoulian reporter, costing him the sight in his left eye, has been charged with aggravated assault. The Missoulian now reports 30-year-old Sean Marceau was arrested last Thursday at a Missoula motel and made an initial court appearance on Friday. His bail was set at $150,000. Les Gappe said he was assaulted by three men in late August in the parking lot of a Walmart in Missoula, where he was staying in his pickup truck for the night. Gappe says one assailant took his cell phone and hit him in the eye at least 5 times. Marceau is scheduled to appear in district court on December 1st. In his proposed state budget, Montana Governor Steve Bullock has recommended another 2-year tuition freeze for the Montana University system. Deputy Commissioner of Higher Education Kevin McCrae said the governor is attempting to address the increasing costs of higher education. He'll attempt to balance the costs of a freeze with an increase in pay for university and other state personnel.
If we were to ultimately receive from the legislature a level of funding as proposed by the governor, plus funding for faculty and staff compensation, it looks like that is a really realistic chance of being able to hold tuition prices level.
McCrae says the Montana Board of Regents has cooperated in freezing tuition for nearly a decade.
With the 4-year campus, 4 out of 8, at the 2-year campus, 8 out of 8, and we have really heard from Montanans and legislators as well that they place value on us keeping tuition affordable.
McCrae says the full 90 days of the upcoming session will be required to work out the budget between the governor and the Republican-led legislature. Governor Bullock has asked the business community to help him promote a $300 million plan to upgrade state buildings, sewers, roads, and other infrastructure across the state. Bullock told a small gathering of business leaders in Billings yesterday he needs their backing to sell the spending package to skeptical lawmakers. He says the proposal would help Montana expand its economy and generate new jobs. The American Society of Civil Engineers released a graded report on Montana's infrastructure yesterday. Missoula engineer Melissa Matassa-Stone was on the committee and explains the results.
How Montana did across the board is we had an overall GPA of a C-. This ranged with grades that on the high end, we had a B- in solid waste. On the low end, a D- in school infrastructure, not quality of education. C- is mediocre.
Last year, the nation received a D-, although Montana outperformed the nation. There were a few areas where the Society of Civil Engineers felt urgent attention is needed.
What needs the most attention in the state of Montana, we would say, is water, wastewater, and dams. Those facilities are the ones that are vital across the board, especially water and wastewater for community help, and ones where we see among the oldest infrastructure in place, where the longer we wait to invest, the more susceptible we are.
It's the first time the American Society of Civil Engineers has done a Montana State report card, but they plan one every 4 years, timed with legislative sessions. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Helena has filed a bankruptcy reorganization plan that proposes a $16.4 million settlement for hundreds of people who said clergy members sexually abused them while the church covered it up. The plan, filed late Monday, calls for the 362 victims identified in 2 lawsuits to receive a minimum payment of $2,500. An abuse claims reviewer will determine the actual payment based on the severity and long-term effects of the abuse. The plaintiff's attorney and any future abuse claims will also be paid out of that trust. The Department of Public Health and Human Services is launching a new program this month aiming to reduce the sale of alcohol to minors. Planning and Outcome Officer Jackie Jant says the Alcohol Reward and Reminder Program is an evidence-based program developed to educate and or reward local businesses for their efforts to keep alcohol out of the hands of minors.
We are launching a program called the Alcohol Reward and Reminder Program, which is an educational program where very young-looking 21-year-olds will enter in a store that sells alcohol or a bar, and they will actually go to purchase the alcohol, and they'll see if the server or the person selling the alcohol will actually card them to see that they're 21 years old.
Jan says if the distributor does card the individual, they get a reward card that says that they passed. If not, the server is then educated on the consequences of underage drinking.
Every licensee who has an alcohol license will be receiving at least one reward and reminder visit throughout this next year. And it is actually divided into 8 regions, and we have regional teams that will go out within those regions to do this work.
And the Montana Secretary of State's office has been working since spring to create an online business toolkit to speed up the business license application and renewal process. Here's Secretary of State Linda McCulloch.
We've noticed that businesses often have to go from agency to agency to find information or forms that they were looking for. This toolkit gives 8 separate tools that walks business owners through filing procedures that pertain to the Secretary of State's office, and then it also gives them links to the other agencies that they have to go to. The
business toolkit can be found at the Secretary of State's website. McCulloch says she hopes that in the future, other Montana agencies will utilize the same toolkit. And finally, the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office says a 6-year-old girl reported missing from East Helena has been located in Missouri. Under Sheriff Dave Rao says officers in Manchester, Missouri, located 6-year-old Ellie Sue Ingold and her father, Robert Ingold, on Tuesday. Our news talk time now is 6:10.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Look for a mix of sun and clouds today with our high temperatures topping out in the mid to upper 20s. Mostly cloudy with our lows in the teens tonight. Thursday's forecast will be tricky. We'll see rain, snow, and even pockets of freezing rain. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for KECI 13.